Hello everyone, welcome to another video with Rahul. Today we are going to discuss AWS S3 and then do a quick demo. So AWS has three broad storage categories. One is the object, file and block storage. Object storage is used to store any kind of content as objects. So you'll have an object and then associated unique key which is used to retrieve that object. To give an example, say you want to store videos, images, Excel files, then you can upload those as an object and then you will get a unique key associated with that file which you can use to retrieve that object. The next one is the file storage. So file storage is something we use on our laptops. You have a drive, within that you have a folder, then you have subfolders, within that you have the files. So if it is Windows based, then you use FSX. If it is Linux based, then you use EFS. The third one is the block storage. So block storage is where you write the data in set of blocks. This is typically used for databases, or even we saw when we created the EC2 instance in the other video, we attached a EBS volume to it. So it's mainly used for databases. Now AWS S3 is an object storage. What are the use cases for S3? One, we already discussed, store and distribute static web content media, any kind of media files, images you can store. The second one is you can host this as a website only if you have static content. If you have dynamic content, then it's not a good use case. The third one is you can store large amount of data, say from clickstream, log analysis in S3, and then there are some downstream AWS services like Athena. You can push it to a data warehouse using Redshift, which then run some analysis on top of the data stored in S3. You can use AWS Glue for some meaningful analysis. And the last one is, and the most critical one, is that it can be used as a backup and archiving solution for critical data. So these are the most common use cases for S3. Now we'll do a demo, but before we do a demo, there are two key concepts that we need to understand. The first one is the bucket. The first thing you create in S3 in your account is a bucket. So bucket is just basically a container. So if you want to put your images, video files in some container, you create a bucket. And you can create up to 100 buckets in your account. Then objects are basically any kind of images, files that you create, that you upload in the bucket. It is called an object. Then you have the object key. Object key is a unique key that's associated with that object, which can be used to retrieve that particular object. What AWS says is that you can virtually store unlimited amount of data on S3, and the S3 object can vary from 0 to 5 TB. But if you have objects larger than 100 MB, you should use a multi-part upload. Basically, it breaks down the file into multiple parts so that it's faster. Okay, let me now go to the demo. Okay, so I'm already on the S3 page, but if not, you can just type the S3 here on the top and get to S3. Now, the first thing we discussed was to create a bucket. So I go here, you can see the create bucket here. I click on create bucket. Then let me just copy the name from here. This name has to be unique globally. If there's a match, then it will give an error. You need to select the region. So I will select Asia Pacific region. Then we need to provide the object ownership, and then block public access. So I'll talk about this. I'll leave it as default for now. Then you have the bucket versioning. So what bucket versioning essentially means is that, say if you upload a file, and then if you make some changes to that file and upload it with the same name, so it's going to keep both the versions. So I'll enable it and I'll show you once I upload the object. So you can add a tag. Tag is basically just if you want to, if you have a bucket and you're storing and there's a cost, you can associate it with a certain business unit. So say if I say AWS BU, okay, it's an optional thing. Then encryption, if you want to encrypt the objects at rest, then you can enable this. So if I enable this, there are three options I have. One is Amazon S3 key. So this is a default done by S3, AWS S3. You don't have to do anything. It will, when you upload the object, it will encrypt it by default, and when you retrieve it, it will decrypt. Then there is one more thing you can do is you can use AWS KMS. AWS KMS is another AWS service which is used to encrypt, decrypt, and provide you with the keys. So you can use that. The third one, the option you have is customer provided encryption keys. But for that, you need to use a AWS CI or SDK. And then finally, we have the advanced setting is the object lock. This is mainly used for regulatory needs. If you need that a particular file that's been uploaded to a bucket, it should not be changed or it cannot be deleted, then you can put the object lock for the time period and nobody can delete it, overwrite that file. So I'll do a create bucket. Okay, so now I have this bucket here. Now what I'll do is I will upload some files to this. So I click on upload, add files. I select all three files and I do a upload. Okay. Now you see that we have all the three files that have been uploaded and you can see a succeed here. Now I just want to show you a couple of things. One is, say if you want to download, so I can click on this, I do a download. So it will allow me to download this file. Now the second thing I want to show is if you want to see the URL, so you can copy the URL and you just paste it here. Now you can see the how it is structured. So first we have the bucket name that we created, then you have the region, and then you have the name of the object that was uploaded. Okay, so that's the structure it follows. I just want to show you a few more things. Let me go to properties. Okay, this just gives a general overview of the bucket. What is the where it was created, AR, and when it was created, bucket versioning. So you can see enabled. So I just wanted to show you what bucket versioning earlier we had enabled. So now see, I have the already AWS image here. Let me upload the same file again, and you will see it has kept both the versions. Okay, now it will upload, so it's uploaded. Let me close this. Okay, now I go to show versions here. Okay, now you can see there are two versions that have been created. Okay, so I'll not go through all the properties because a lot of them are not so critical. This is baseline and demo. So intelligent tiering, I'll discuss what intelligent tiering means. Default description we already discussed. So let's go to the permissions one. Yeah, so this is the important one, so I'll discuss this one. So there are three ways in which you can provide access to a bucket. So the first one is what we call as block public access. So you can see here. So this is block public access. This is provided by default. So every bucket that you create by default will have this block all public accesses on. So if you want to provide public access, then you have to do an edit and uncheck this. Then you can provide access. Okay. The second access you provide is through bucket policies. So I will show you the bucket policies. What bucket policy does is basically you can define who will be able to access the contents of this bucket, whether it's publicly accessible or there are only different AWS accounts that can access or only the services within AWS. So you can define that in the bucket policy. So here you can just see the bucket policy. You can edit, you can have some policy examples here, and then you can generate the bucket policy. So you see here, this is one of the examples where you are allowing public read. Principle is just everyone, Then what are the actions? You can get object version, and this is the bucket name. So you can define the bucket policy, and this is the recommended policy, recommended method provided by AWS to provide access to the objects in the bucket. Okay. So then you also have the ACL. This is ACL is another, but it's a legacy method. So AWS recommends that you do not use this for providing access. So these are the three things you need to keep in mind to understand who to provide access to the S3 bucket. Okay. So let me go to some metrics. So those metrics basically provide you some data. So like what's the total bucket size, how many, um, what's the size of the data stored in the bucket, then what are the total number of objects. So I don't think I have anything here right now. So if you have 100 objects, it will show you what are the metrics related to that. Then I'll just go quickly through the management. So you can provide some lifecycle rules. One thing I wanted to explain to you is, which is critical, is the AWS S3 storage classes. So there are four now. I think AWS has added recently one more, but it's primarily very similar. So S3 standard is where you can upload, like what we did. It will upload all the objects in the S3 standard class. The next one is S3 standard infrequent access. So if there are certain objects that are not used frequently, you can move them to S3 IA. So it's cheaper, but there is a catch that it is going to be there in that class for minimum 30 days. If you push it to S3 IA and then push it back after 15 days to S3 standard, you will be charged a 30-day fee. Okay. Then you have S3 Glacier. S3 Glacier is more for archiving. Both S3 Deep Glacier and Glacier are there for objects that need to be archived for regulatory purpose or backup or whatever for long term and are not retrieved very frequently. So you can retrieve, but there will be some cost, a retrieval fee that will be associated with this. But there is a minimum 90-day lock-in period with Glacier. So you can move it, but you will still be charged for 90 days. And for Deep Glacier, you will have 180 days. Okay. So then there's something called as intelligent tiering. So if you allow that, the AWS S3 will by itself decide, okay, this is not being frequently accessed, so I can move it to infrequent access. If this is not being utilized for 90 days, so I can move it to Glacier. So that's what this can help you to define some policies. Okay, then let me just go back to management. Replication policies. If you want to replicate across regions, then you have to enable this replication policy. Then you have the inventory configuration. Inventory configuration basically gives you all the details in a flat file, which provide you insights into what are the kind of buckets, objects, etc. you have in S3. Okay. Then finally you have the access points, which is provided a different way of providing access to different applications. Okay, that's pretty much it. Please subscribe, like if you like the video. Thank you very much.